Mercedes stood on the podium for the first time this year in Australia. After a disappointing season in 2022 and a disappointing start to this season, Mercedes were quick to reveal that their car concept is not good enough for the current era of F1 cars. And now Lewis Hamilton has revealed that he really struggles with Mercedes' 2023 Formula One car's forward sitting position and that it 100% must be modified for future designs. Obviously aiming at the B-spec W14 we're all going to see in May at Imola. Will we see this change come true? Let us find out. Mercedes constructed a car with the cockpit farther forward for the new technical standards established last year, which was most likely necessary to allow it to proceed with the design with an exposed side impact structure and minimized side pod. The cockpit location has been preserved on the 2023 W14, and technical director Mike Elliott acknowledged it was already quite forward last year during testing in February. Hamilton is dissatisfied with how this sitting position impairs his ability to sense the car's behavior, and it said that he wanted it modified, but accepted it since it was critical to a design idea in which the team believed. That highlights a particular pain Hamilton has inside the larger issue of Mercedes' faulty car concept's lack of performance. The seven-time world champion said at the Australian Grand Prix that it has contributed to his inability to get the most out of the W14 in comparison to teammate George Russell. "We sit closer to the front wheels than all the other drivers," said Hamilton. "Our cockpit is too close to the front. When you're driving, you feel like you're sitting on the front wheels, which is one of the worst feelings to feel when you're driving a car. If you are driving your car at home and you put the wheels right underneath your legs, you would not be happy when you're approaching the roundabout." So what that does is it just really changes the attitude of the car and how you perceive its movement, and it makes it harder to predict compared to when you're further back and you're sitting closer, more center. It's just something I've really struggled with. When asked whether he had accepted Mercedes' decision to keep the seat because the team believed it was necessary for building the fastest car possible, Hamilton answered, "Yeah, I listened to the team, and that was the direction that they said we should go. Had I known the feeling that I would have in it, it wouldn't have happened. And it has to change for the future, 100%. This may be exaggerating Hamilton's sensitivity to the characteristics of the W14. He claims that the Mercedes performs the opposite of what we want, and his reasoning seems to be related to Mercedes' difficulties in optimizing and managing the aerodynamic center of pressure. This is the average of the downforce created at the front and back of the car, and it is an important factor in determining whether the car understeers or oversteers. Because of the new car's concentration on ground effect aerodynamics and how hard the floors are pushed, the center of pressure is farther back than previously, from the front of the floor to the throat of the diffuser, which is somewhat further back. It also indicates that the center of pressure moves more as it travels farther from rear to front. Hamilton believes Mercedes' aerodynamic characteristics are too far forwards rather than offering a solid rear on entrance and then moving rearwards through the turn, allowing for controlled rotation. He claims that this causes the car to be on the nose or highly sensitive on turn-in with a weak rear end. When combined with the bad sensation he gets from the car's sitting position, Hamilton may be failing to cope with the rear instability as effectively as he has in the past. "We still have generally a very strong front and not as good a rear as we would hope to have," Hamilton said of the W14 compared to the W13. "If you look at the Red Bulls, the places where they get on the power earlier and the speed they can take through the corners is just because they have a much stronger rear end. So what can Mercedes do about it? Well, there is only one thing to do to keep the seven-time world champion satisfied, and that is modifying the current car. And this is exactly what Mercedes will do in the coming races. It might not be the great reset Lewis Hamilton is hoping for, but Mercedes is coming out with the big guns and are going all out to upgrade the W14 to challenge the frontrunners. And while implementing these upgrades, Mercedes has said that it would reconsider the more forward cockpit position of its Formula One car, which Lewis Hamilton hates since it is important to listen to the seven-time world champion. Mercedes designed the car around this crucial cockpit modification in 2022, allowing it to proceed with the design with an exposed side impact structure and minimized side pod, and retained it for 2023, against Hamilton's preferences. This is because the sitting position was critical to Mercedes' design idea, which Hamilton approved, but the fact is that the W14 is still not fast enough, and Mercedes is now exploring further dramatic adjustments, especially with the expected upgrades regarding the side pods on the B-Spec W14 that will be introduced at Imola in May. Hamilton said the cockpit position 100% has to change, and when asked if that will happen next year, Mercedes team boss Toto Wolff said, "We're looking at the big concept, and the driver position obviously is one of the things that's most important. Not only in terms of the rational reasons like weight distribution or aerodynamics, but also where the driver has the best feeling in the car. That's something that Lewis was pretty vocal about. A 7-time world champion has an opinion, and that is important to listen to." While Wolff did not absolutely state that this would change next year, it is an acknowledgement that Hamilton's desire will be considered. Moreover, with Mercedes already investigating alternative development possibilities, it is probable that it will ditch the unusual side pod design that necessitated this arrangement in the first place, which we will see debut on the B-Spec in May. But due to the nature of such a change, it might not happen during the season, so Hamilton might have to deal with it in the meantime. He hinted at this after finishing second in the Australian Grand Prix, his and Mercedes' first podium result of the season. "I still feel uncomfortable in the car," said Hamilton. "I still don't feel connected to it, so I'm driving as best I can with that disconnect, and I'm working as hard as I can to try and create that connection. But I think it's a long project." Mercedes drivers sit much more forward than Red Bull drivers, although the difference between cars is more minor. Thus, although cockpit location will impact the driver's experience in the car, it is just one component of a larger picture. The position Hamilton hates would be less of a problem if the car itself was better, yet there are both short-term and long-term adjustments planned, with multiple clues already pointing to the W14 requiring mechanical enhancements in addition to aerodynamic tweaks. "We are working as hard as we can in the wind tunnel to find more downforce. We will be working as hard as we can in the drawing office to convert the things that the wind tunnel found a few weeks ago into performance that we deliver to the track," explained Mercedes Chief Technical Officer James Allison. "We will be working in the drawing office also to bring some mechanical parts to the car, some different suspension components that we think will help the underlying balance of the car and make it a more drivable thing, making it something that the drivers have more confidence to push right to the limits." Hamilton came in second in Melbourne and is now 20 points and 3 places ahead of teammate George Russell in the championship. However, Russell didn't finish the Australian Grand Prix, which helped Hamilton's stance. Hamilton has been the slower Mercedes driver this year, and he has been defeated by Russell in all 3 qualifying sessions. Russell did not seem to be as bothered as Hamilton by the W14's restrictions and his ability to drive around them. Their degrees of experience may be impacting this in some way. Although Hamilton has a special difficulty with this generation of Mercedes that prevents him from coping with its faults as effectively as he typically does, he is also much more experienced and has lately been used to a higher quality car that provides him with the sensation he seeks. Russell, on the other hand, is adjusting to the car in its present condition and finds it better than anything he has driven full-time in his brief F1 career, having previously only raced for Williams until joining Mercedes last year. "The feeling of the car is not the limitation, to be honest. The car feels pretty decent," said Russell in Melbourne. "It's probably the best F1 car I've ever driven or raced, excluding the obvious 2020 experience with Mercedes, a stand-in Sakir GP, but just lacking a bit of downforce. We know we've made some huge gains over the past 2-3 weeks in the wind tunnel, and hopefully we'll be bringing that to the track sooner than later. If we can deliver a performance like this, with a car that is definitely quite a bit off the pace, it shows good promise for when we bring the first upgrade." This first real upgrade obviously being the B-Spec W14, which will sport new side pods. Could this upgrade also introduce a new seating position for the drivers? And if this happens, do you see Hamilton challenging Russell and the other drivers? Let us know your thoughts on the W14 in the comments down below. We can't wait to see what Mercedes has for us in store at Imola. Will it be a total redesign, or are we being fooled after all? Exciting times ahead for Mercedes fans. Thanks for watching today's video, and we'll see you in the next one.